You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is our Day 3 coverage of Star Wars Celebration. Let me start that over. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. I'm kidding. So we're going to do our kind of highlights of Day 3, which I would say was kind of I'm not going to say underwhelming because it's not fair. I mean, they're not going to knock this out of the park every day. This is typical for what we see. Day 1 has a lot of big announcements. Day 2 has some pretty big ones kind of intermingled, and then by Day 3, Day 4, it's, it's a little bit less newsworthy, but nonetheless, there are some things to talk about. There was some great content that was shared today, panels, interviews. We're going to get into all of that here in just a minute. But the man to my right, or to your left as you're looking at the screen, is Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Actually, you had made a comment to me earlier today that this was a day that was really strong in the podcast stage type of space and some of the fan stage stuff, which is also going on behind all of the scenes that we really have zero insight into.
Yeah.
Which is one of the more disappointing parts about not being there is that we don't get to go out and support the people that we've become, fairly good friends with in some ways, and be able just to support the other shows, and the content that we like to consume is just fans of other Star Wars materials, right? So big day in that space though. So congratulations everyone who were on those stages, had the opportunity to participate, and of course those who got to actually go attend those and probably get to hear some pretty amazing comments and some thoughts and responses there.
Yeah. And speaking of someone who has always has amazing comments, is Lauren. Lauren, welcome to the show. This is now the 5th show in 3 days with you. How are you feeling, and are you tired?
I'm good. Somewhat tired, but I'm going. Maybe delirious.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I know. We still got one more tomorrow, but So Jeff's with us here tonight. Says y'all are machines. Droids is probably the more applicable term here, but
that's right. But he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong.
I mean, there's a lot to cover, so it's not really, it's not a bad thing to complain about.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is we don't get to do this every week, right? I mean, this is a once every year and a half kind of deal. So
yeah,
why not? And
it's been cool to the three of us to do all this together for each episode and be able to plan and kind of bring it all together. So it's a special event. So it's cool to make it special with y'all too.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into some of the news. So we're going to start off Celebration first. I'm going to call it off Celebration, although it's
Star Wars. It's a Celebration adjacent.
Adjacent, yeah. Tangential,
kind of like canon.
It's kind of like Legend stuff, right? But there was an interview that was held today. So Kathleen Kennedy has been doing a number of these interviews, and it seems like IGN has had a lot of this stuff. So I don't know how they pitched this or how they got most of them. Maybe they're just the ones that are popping up on our feeds, but definitely had another interview today, this time with Entertainment Weekly, and kind of talking about the movies. She talked about New Jedi Order. She talked about Dawn of the Jedi and the New Republic specifically. But I know you got some leads on all these. What were some of the big highlights from those conversations in that interview?
I think the one that everyone is really excited and talking about is for the movies. The crawl is back. So this is something that, of course, was not there for Rogue One or for Solo: A Star Wars Story, which some people were a little upset about. Was also not there for the Clone Wars movie when the original Clone Wars movie came out, if you remember that, which I think was really the start of some of that.
Yeah.
So this is really exciting for a lot of people. They feel like there was a missed opportunity with that, of that continuity with Star Wars. It was more relegated, or it kept just with the saga was the idea behind it. And I think it was always just part of the Star Wars mythos, though. This is just setting everything up within the frame of just giving everyone that context. Now, granted, some of the material we've come into, we had a pretty good idea of what we were stepping into on some level. So was it as necessary? But I will say this, with Rogue One, I have a fan edit version of it, and they put a crawl in it, and then they kind of recut the movie a little bit, which is always, whether you like that thing or not is up to you. But but at least having the crawl back in it really did make a bit of a difference, because you get to set the stage. It's really important, I think, for us as Star Wars. It gets you in the moods, not only seeing, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but then having the crawl to go with it and just the fanfare, and actually feels like Star Wars. That's the thing that starts to link and get you in that headspace immediately. Which, so I'm kind of happy. I'm happy this is the thing again.
What about you, Lauren? Is that a deal breaker for you? Crawl, no crawl?
I will say that in the past, like I tend to, I understood why they didn't do the crawl for those films because I like the idea of the Skywalker saga having that special, like, having something that distinguishes it as like a special part of Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I mean, after hearing what Jonesy was just saying, I was kind of on board with his side. So, so I think I have some mixed feelings about crawl.
That's one.
Yeah, that's one. I don't think I have a strong opinion one way or the other. Like it's
I don't really either.
Right.
It can work either way.
Yeah, but I think what you're speaking to is definitely it distinguishes itself as more than just a side movie, and that not to take anything away from those quote side movies or adjacent movies. They've been great, right? But yeah, I think what it does for me is it signals that okay, we're back into the real like core. I don't want to call it saga. That's the hard part about this. Is like, what do we call it now, right? But definitely the main core cinematic experience for Star Wars. I don't even know that. That's probably not the right word yet. We'll land something here at some point, I'm sure, once we get closer to the production releases. But yeah, I get it. I'm for it either way.
Yeah, it's so cool. So there were a few other little tidbits. Again, none of these nuggets are really super meaty, but not necessarily unexpected. So for New Jedi Order, another quote was, "It's entirely possible to see some people come back." So talking about some of those characters.
I'm going to go out and say Rey is coming back on this one, but keep going, please.
And this was in addition to Rey, right?
Yes. Oh, in addition to Rey, yeah.
Right. So,
right, yeah.
Maybe a certain stormtrooper coming back.
Stormtrooper such as Finn?
Maybe he's part of her academy.
Grogu?
Along with the rest of the Star Wars stormtroopers.
Broom Boy?
Broom Boy, yeah. The starfighter that's not force sensitive, apparently. Oh. Anyway, and then another quote was the question we're going to ask with the New Jedi Order in Rey is, does the galaxy need them anymore? Do they want them back? So there's a lot of food for thought in what we're doing, whether it's in the past, present, or future. A little more generic last comment there. But again, asking the questions that we're asking, right? So where's the Jedi's place in the galaxy? What do people care about the Jedi? Do they want the Jedi anymore? And I think these are really good questions to ask. I think this is what you made this comment yesterday, the day before, where it's almost like we had someone on screen asking the questions like for the audience, like Bo-Katan.
Yeah, it was Bo-Katan.
We were talking about the Mandalorian episode, right? It's kind of like she's doing that for us right now, right? They've stepped back and they've said, okay, from a fan's perspective, what are the questions that are being asked? And these are what we're asking, right? And it's what the galaxy would be asking. So I like that there's a lot of connected tissue there. And it's kind of rooted, not necessarily rooted in reality, but it's rooted in a normal, applicable question. And so I kind of like that the approach that they're going again for New Jedi Order in particular, because let's just be honest, this will probably be a little bit polarizing whenever this starts to gain momentum and actually, become closer to, coming out or at least getting more news about it.
Yeah. Well, at some point here, once we get through Celebration and we've had a chance to sleep, I think we're going to come back and try to do some of these speculation shows. Like it would be cool to do one specifically on New Jedi Order, one on Dawn of the Jedi and New Republic, and just theorize on things that we'd like to see, things that they may have dropped throughout the other movies, books, whatever that we can lean into and speculate on. But I think that question about whether or not the Jedi are needed is a really good question, because if I were the galaxy at large, right, and I've had my fair share of Jedi over the last 20, 30, 40 years now, nothing good has ever come, in my opinion at least, right? Nothing good has ever come from the Force. I think I would have a very negative approach to it. I think where that would probably change, though, is if there was something as a threat to the galaxy, like, I don't know, Yuzong Vong, or something else that was like really a threat to the galaxy, then yeah, okay, now I kind of need your help, Jedi, because we can't handle it. But otherwise, I'd be like just with everybody else, like screw those guys. Don't let them rebuild. They're just going to cause more problems, right?
Well, and that was the theme in the New Jedi Order for a while.
Yeah. What about you, Lauren? What do you think? Do we need the Jedi in a post the Rise of Skywalker era?
Well, I like this question of looking at, does the galaxy want them back and how would they make that happen? What I'm more hesitant about, and this is kind of what I mentioned yesterday, I believe, was eh, if we have like every single story, we have like a threat to the whole galaxy as we know it. I do worry about that starting to get kind of repetitive. Like, how many more big villains can we come up with that are bigger than the ones that we've already had?
Mm.
So it'll be interesting to see like what way they spin that. But I do like the question of how are we going to like reintegrate back into the galaxy after everything that's happened. So it'll be good to see how they tackle that one at the very least.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So moving on back, or going, I guess, back into the past with Dawn of the Jedi, the quote that she had was, we've been talking a lot about going well into the past. And one of the things that's really knitting this all together, obviously, are the Jedi. What happened with the Jedi over time? How did the Jedi evolve? They were wiped out with Order 66 and they gradually, came back. So, I mean, again, this is more of framing of the question of where did they come from, expressing our interest of understanding who they are. Like, why was it even important for them to come about, and what was that journey look like?
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the New Republic, and so this is where she talks a little bit about Dave Filoni. He says, I hesitate to say it's a big meetup from just those series, says Lucasfilm president, because Dave has been developing Star Wars storytelling inside Clone Wars and Rebels, and so much of the work he's done for 20 years. So it will be little bits of all of that. There are a lot of sources he's drawing from to see where we're going. So again, a very high level, comment, but also acknowledgement that Dave Filoni has all of this wonderful experience, and he not only does he already do this, but likely to continue to draw on the material he's got, not only from an Easter egg perspective, but bringing to light characters that have, a potential story behind them and a potential meaning behind them, and putting them on screen for us to enjoy.
Yeah. I don't see any harm, honestly, to talk about the New Republic. She says, I hesitate to say it's a big meetup. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, in fact, I would, if it were me, I'd be plugging that as like the main selling point, because you've got a very captive audience, a new audience that's really come into the Disney Plus era of Star Wars. They've grown up with The Mandalorian. They've grown up with Kenobi. They've grown up with Ahsoka at that point, right? So that's not a bad thing.
Well, I think her perspective, sorry to interrupt you, I think maybe the perspective was, it's not just hey, we're going to bring all these characters, throw them together, it's an event, no big deal type of thing, and either minimize the event or minimize their own individual content as well, their individual shows, that there's not meaning behind either one of those. And that they are, while they're connected, they're also unique in some kind of way, even if they're part of the same story in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just, and I think the second part of her comment there is, I have no doubt, like, he's going to pull from the last 20 years in whatever he does, right? I mean,
he continues to.
He's known to do that. He's doing it now. He's still doing it, right? So that all makes sense. As far as the Dawn of the Jedi, like, that one is the one that's really, as much as I love Dawn of the Jedi, I'm going to go back to what I said a few days ago on Friday. That 25,000 years in the past scares the crap out of me, because that is such a long span of time. And, as far as why did we get the Jedi and how did they evolve? It's all been answered in Legends. A lot of it is just the fact that, there was evil in the galaxy and someone had to offset that evil, and it became the Jedi. They took it upon themselves to kind of really oversimplify 25,000 years. But I wonder if they're going to try to do something more there. It's just, I don't know. It's very interesting and very intriguing. I would really like to do a show dedicated just to theory and speculation there.
Any other thoughts there, Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, the 25,000 years in the past, for some reason, it doesn't scare me. I don't know if it's just because for so long I've been wanting to go to the past that now I'm like, yay, we're doing it. That maybe I'm not thinking through the implications all the way, but I don't know. I'm just kind of excited to see what they do with it, because it is, even though there's, as you mentioned, there's a lot of inspiration that they could take from Legends. In other ways, it's also kind of like an open book, which I really like.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it's more the latter part there. And I get it. I don't know, and this may not be where you're coming from, Albert, but we're all a little gun shy, I think, sometimes with the movies about what are we going to get? Is it going to fit? Is it going to fit what we like or what we've known? How much is it going to draw? There's a lot of uncertainty that goes with that, and often that's really exciting. But also, I think there's a little bit of nervousness now, especially it's been a few years since we've had some of this stuff, and we had speculated which one might come first the other day. Whoever comes first has got a really, really difficult task in front of them, because they have to really draw everybody in and really engage and feel like we're back, right? We're back in the movies. We're back with a vengeance. We're at the top of our game again.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure. That's just a lot of pressure.
It
So-
is nerve wracking, especially thinking about how with the last movies, it was not only was it kind of nerve wracking to see what they were going to do with the story, but it's also nerve wracking to consider the implications of what comes after too. So it feels like
Right.
there's a lot on the line.
It's tough to always know how they're going to fit, how well it's all going to fit and well, mesh together, which I think is usually where I get concerned. Is it messy? Yeah, it works, but it's messy now, and sometimes that's a little uncomfortable to go. But
So I just want to quickly. So Jeff in the so Jeff's picking up on something that so when I say I'm hesitant, right, or my fears, it's not even like headcanon. It's more about what he says the High Republic doesn't really make it seem like the Jedi have been around for 24,800 years or so by that point, but we'll see. I'm optimistic. He's picking up on something. So when they in the High Republic, one of the major like shocking like revelations for me was the fact that we had not really conquered hyperspace. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that was something that was a staple. I mean, that goes back at least in Legends thousands of years ago. We'd already moved past all that. Right. And so we're going 24,000 years. So how was interstellar travel even a thing? Are we going to be isolated to a single planet? The 25,000 years concern for me is when I look at the galaxy 25,000 years ago, it's so far back that it should be completely unrecognizable and almost to the concern I have is it doesn't even feel quote like Star Wars at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like we're still going to be so far back. I'm not saying we're going to be primitives or anything like that, but I don't know. It's just an interesting choice that they chose together. They could have done 5,000 years and probably still had have a very stark difference in terms of aesthetic, style, design, and we'd be okay. I just can't wrap my head around it. I don't know. Again, maybe it's the legend stuff that's getting stuck in me, but it's a very different time back then.
Yeah, I mean, when Kathleen Kennedy says we're not going back to the Stone Age, okay, well, what does that mean? Because like you said, we've gone back 250 years.
Right.
We don't have hyperspace. Now we're going to multiply that by 100, and we're going to say that we're not in the Stone Age. There's a disconnect there somewhere. So I'm
Possibly just the Iron Age.
Maybe
Instead
the
of
Iron
all the way
Age,
to
there
the
you go.
Stone Age.
Not stone, it's iron. Sure.
and maybe time works differently in Star Wars. We don't know.
Yes, and I've read the Dawn of the Jedi. Dale was asking, have you read Dawn of the Jedi? I could probably quote it for you. And I guess that's where some of my concerns coming from. I don't know how much they're going to lean into that. Honestly, they may have just borrowed the title. They borrowed the Last Jedi title, right? So that was completely different than the comic or the book. So yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Yep. But anyway, so interesting comments glad we got to talk a little bit about these. Again, she keeps giving us context, even though the panel was 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
We keep getting a little bit extra content just from these different sources, just a small different take. So again, just to kind of keep rounding out our knowledge and our opinions, at least about what we're seeing and what we're hearing right now. So we wanted to bring back that out to everyone while we've got your attention.
Yeah. So let's talk about the villains panel, which was, so I got to say, like the villains panel there was that one, there was the Kenobi one. The fact that they only brought these three out was kind of surprising. Like I thought they would have brought out like Pride, maybe out there. They could have brought.
Actually, Ian McDiarmid shared your comments there too, didn't he?
Yeah, no, he did. That's right. And I'm not trying to steal his thunder, but he's absolutely right. Like I was surprised not to see him.
You could anyway.
Well, yeah. What's his name? Domhnall Gleeson for Hux didn't show up.
There's a whole slew that they could have brought. Yeah.
Right. So
voice actors from some of the Inquisitors. I mean, gosh.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think this was supposed to be post Rise of Skywalker, though, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But either way, there was, or post, I guess, a sequel trilogy. Yeah. So there were other people that certainly fit the bill to be included in this. And maybe this is all they can get. Don't get me wrong. I thought the panel, this was like probably the best panel of the three, not taking anything away from the Kenobi one. But seeing and hearing like their passion, especially Gwendolyn Christie, like, she's got kind of a weird laugh, but aside, she's so passionate and she speaks so elegantly, she speaks so dramatically that you just feel like you get caught up and like want to root for her, or like you feel what she feels. But hearing their stories about how each of them came into how they got the call, right, how they got the roles and that sort of thing, that was all really good stuff. Andy Serkis and we'll talk more about Ian McDiarmid here in a little bit, but they were all three of them. This was really good. I really enjoyed this panel, probably more than any of the other ones today. But
Lauren, do you have a favorite moment from any of these folks, or just in general on this panel?
Well, I just love listening to Gwendolyn Christie talk because it's
Yes.
like you were saying, Albert. She says everything with such conviction that you're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you're right there with her, like feeling it. And when she's describing what Phasma means to her as a character, and
Hmm.
she's describing like there were a couple times today when she took the main stage too, she also mentioned this, but just like the Phasma's armor and kind of like how it represented like a non-traditional woman villain in a way that we don't often see, and like her whole take on that. I just loved hearing her describe all of that, and
Yeah.
it's just like you can see like how much she really put into that character, which is always great to see.
She made a comment about the reflection of the armor, right? And I think this is what you were talking about because I like picked up on it too. But the reflection of the armor and how it was reflecting back onto the world, the evil, a woman of that was evil, the presence, and how the world looked upon that and all that. I mean, it's just like so deep. It's like you want to give her an Oscar every time she finishes talking about a question that was asked at a panel. She's so eloquent in terms of how the word choices she uses and some of the analogies.
And it's so amazing. I'm sorry, Larry. It's so amazing. A character that didn't really have a lot of screen time, not a lot of dialogue, but again, the thought and the planning and the idealism that go into the character to try to bring them to life in the best way they can, given the scope of the work that they're allowed to kind of do as well. So that's one of my favorite parts about these panels is that you get this insight into the preparation, and also just it's like she talked about when she put the armor on and she put the helmet on, she just becomes something different, and you kind of experience it through the costuming. And she's not the only one who have expressed this throughout the celebration, but the way that she said it was just so eloquent that I just absolutely fell in love with it.
Yeah, and her story too that she was telling about how she really, really wanted to be in Star Wars and she was like hounding people. Like I loved hearing that story too. It was really funny. So that it's nice to get those little details as well from these panels.
It was the biggest character campaign probably ever in Star Wars, next to somebody like who was the other one that was really pushing hard? Oh, Samuel Jackson, right? I mean, he's same kind of thing. Anywhere, every chance he got, putting bugs in people's ears, just trying to get the word out there, willing it to existence. And yeah, it paid off for her. So
very cool.
What about for Andy Serkis? I just had a couple comments. So he told that story of what I called the first supper, where they got everybody together for the first time. It was right before The Force Awakens. And this is the first time all the actors had really seen each other for the first time. And they had their spouses and other people, and they gathered at this restaurant called the Ivy. And he had this really funny joke. And I'm not going to, it was, long story short is someone came up to him and was like, hey, I'm in the movie too. And he was like, yeah, but who are you? And he's like, well, I'm Mark. And who are you? But it turns out it was Mark Hamill, and that Andy Serkis didn't recognize him. Like, he didn't even know who he was. And he kept asking him, like, okay, yeah, that's cool, dude, but who are you? Like, thinking he was, a part of the production crew or something. And it turned out to be, Luke freaking Skywalker of all things. So he said they still have a pretty good laugh at that. But, and then the follow up to that was Gwendolyn Christie saying, and that's why Snoke died, because he,
because you pissed off Mark Hamill.
Yeah, because you pissed off Mark Hamill and you weren't able to recognize that he was there. So, it was a really good little piece there.
I could just listen to Andy Serkis tell stories all day long. I mean, not only does he have one of the most iconic voices, like the ability to just this rich voice, right? With the voiceover he's done. Of course, a lot of that is because of post processing and some of the motion capture restrictions he's had on that. But man, I could just listen to this guy tell stories all the time. I mean, he's just so fantastic.
Yeah,
and listening to him talk about Christopher Lee at the very beginning of the interview as well.
As an inspiration
into horror. Like, how do you get in that frame of mind? Again, I find this really compelling and really interesting. And having Andy Serkis tell you anything, I'm willing to have that on my phone. Like, just have you, can he be my alarm to wake me up, type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Ian McDiarmid. So I'm going to kind of conflate two of the interviews. I'm going to use this one that we see here and then the one he did later on at the Celebration live stage.
Right.
But in the Celebration, or I think it was in this one, he came out and said thanks for being here on this day of resurrection, right? He echoed Palpatine because it was Easter, which I thought I was dying when he said that. Later on, he came out during this one here that we're showing a picture of, and he said happy anniversary in Palpatine's voice. He loves this. Like, he knows, I mean, he feeds off of it. Anytime he gets a chance to drop into character and drop right now, he certainly does it, but I always enjoy that when he does that. But one thing that stood out to me with his discussion, going back to the villains panel, And Andy Serkis kind of reaffirmed this as well. And I'm not going to give the writers a free pass here in terms of the discombobulated story that we got between the three trilogies. That's not what I'm talking about. But they were talking about a more nuanced piece of the character development and how these characters are written a specific way. They're interpreted a certain way. They come out, they start to do the performance, and then right before they go out, someone says, oh, wait, we're going to make a change, right? We're going to change the origin, or we're going to have this line or remove this line altogether. And for them, it can be kind of, disjointing because now they've prepped all this and now they've got to make a 0 hour kind of change. But what it was really speaking to, both him and Andy said this, was just that character development. And a lot of times, they do have a character in mind, but it is more of an organic process, right? It's more collaborative with the actors, the writers, directors. And so by the time we get to the final product, it probably doesn't look exactly the way it started. And I think that's okay. But again, that's more nuance. My grief, I think, with the sequel trilogy was just kind of that overarching, we don't know where we're starting or going. Right. Within the characters, I think that's okay. The only other part of this was this was all relative to the Snoke. It started with Andy Serkis talking about Snoke and how they really didn't know who he was. Like he was finding out as we were, or as everybody else is finding out. Right? They didn't go into The Force Awakens and say, okay, by the time we get to the third movie, when we get there, you'll find out that you're actually a clone of Palpatine and that sort of thing. It wasn't anything like that at all. So he was finding out almost in real time as production was starting to go through, which makes me feel better, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting how he came up with his backstory, with Snoke's backstory.
Right, yeah.
It was almost one of like empathy, right? Well, he had to start somewhere, not knowing, of course, that he's really just a clone of the Emperor, but it got there. And
yeah.
I think this is we want to assume that we write a script, we write a screenplay, and things kind of work out the way that you plan for them to, right? Because you've put all this effort into it. But as things go on, you start to understand, throughout that process, and we've just heard this from so many people over numbers of years. As you just go through the process, some things work and some things aren't, and you have to, shift, or you just find out, no, this is really what this character feels like, and the actors are doing that in real time, and they're a big part of that process, and that's why the communication with directors, and why when your talent or you're in front of the camera talent and you're behind the camera talent have conflicts. That's why projects fall apart really quickly, because you need that collaboration in order to figure out and make this thing an organic experience is a very good way to describe it, because you're partnered up in this and try to make something really special and really unique that people are going to go and enjoy. So it was really cool to be able to have that aspect and that perspective on it.
Yeah. Let's see. I think the only other thing I had was,
but could Ian McDiarmid just be more charming at times though? Either
he's always been this. I mean, he's so good. He's so dang good, and he's such the nicest guy in the world, and yet he's able to kind of turn on, the evilest person in the world. They had asked him like, what does Palpatine do when he comes home after a hard day's work? And he says, drink blood. I mean, he's like, it's like, whoa, okay, yeah, this guy really, really is evil. Excuse me. There was a moment too, and back to the live celebration stage where they did the cackle. He got to do that live, which I thought was cool. They tried to get the audience to do it at once.
That didn't really work.
That was really botched. The countdown was bad, and it was like crickets, and they were the only two that did it. And I was like, oh, okay, well.
Well, he did a great job.
He did a good job. I mean,
that's all we were there for anyway. Right.
Right.
Everyone in the room was probably like, why do we want to do this? No, we'll just watch him do it. It's fine.
Yeah. So, okay, well, let's talk quickly then. Let's move over to the Kenobi panel. I mean, this is like where the Love Fest, I mean, it's been going on since, the Kenobi series was announced, and we knew that Hayden Christensen would be back. But definitely was feeling the love here in any interview he did anywhere. I'll let you guys kind of talk about that, because you guys have some very specifics, but I would say it was cool to see everybody on stage for the first time. This was Vivian Blair's first real appearance on stage with the rest of these folks, because at the time she was a secret when they announced the series, and so she wasn't able to come out. And just, by the way, like, she's so charming for a 10-year-old. Like just the way she responded to everything was very professional, very thoughtful, still, through the eyes of a child, which is really amazing to see, because sometimes they can kind of get to their heads, but she seems pretty darn grounded, if you ask me. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the panel. There was no big revelations. It was just cool to see everybody back together. And I got to say, I do like Ewan McGregor's mustache. It's kind of, it's otherworldly at this point.
I won't comment on
He's
that.
got to look.
I've got
Yeah.
to collect myself. Lauren, you take this for now.
He's got a very specific look going on right now.
Oh, it's like
but
epic with the hair too. The
Yeah.
hair and that mustache.
He looks like a rejected
they-
sailor.
when they showed
yeah.
it for the first time, I was like, wow, he went there. Okay.
Yeah, he just came off the docks, right?
I'm sure it's for a part, but
Right. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, this panel though, it was really special because at last Celebration, I know that they aired the beginning of Kenobi, but we hadn't seen Hayden in the Vader suit yet. Like there was a lot that we didn't know about Leia. And there was just a lot that we didn't know. So now, like it all being out in the open, we've all seen it. It did feel more special in that they were able to actually talk freely. There wasn't so much secrecy around what they were allowed to say. So it was good to kind of hear them talk about the special moments that they had while shooting too.
Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool. I mean, and again, to maybe to bridge some of the other Celebration live stage we had, because Hayden Christensen was on stage as well. Vivian Lyra Blair was also on stage. And you're right. She is just so freaking adorable.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. She's just like the cutest kid. She's so well spoken. You know, she's very aware of kind of what's going on around her. Hearing her stories about not being able to tell her friends and like being a little bit worried about her friends that were getting into Star Wars while she was just getting into filming it. I mean, just things you have to, like, we don't always think about some of that as adults either. So it was just really cool to be able to get that context. And of course, any of the emotion, it just, again, the emotional love fest from Celebration continued, I think, in spades with this panel. And then with each individual person as they came up on stage as well. And of course, we'll show Hayden Christensen here in a minute and talk a little about that. But I mean, she's just absolutely adorable though, and she just feels so grown up for this part. We wondered why she didn't feel like 10 years old in the show.
Yeah.
And now we know why. Is because she does not
Yeah.
feel 10 years old in person either. Like some kids just have this ability to just exude an experience larger and beyond their years. And she's just kind of one of these kids. I was really surprised she was out there on her own. And I think she was only blocked for like 5 minutes. And I didn't time it to see exactly how long it went for, but it felt like it went for longer. And she was just totally comfortable doing it. So it was a really great interview. Christina Ariel did a fantastic job as well, making sure she was comfortable. And so just really cool to see this. And it was really nice to see Indira Varma on there too.
Okay, so I'm gonna do something, and you guys are gonna be scared right now. So it's not in the script.
Isn't.
It usually isn't. So as I was watching this interview, something kept bugging me, and then when it finally hit me, I thought, "Holy crap!" I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna remove us from the stream, and I'm gonna put 2 images up real quick here. So here we go.
Just me? Okay.
So I can't. I was trying to pull up, like, at any moment. Does she not look like a younger Lauren?
Yeah, Lauren, we're going to need some pictures from about 15, 20 years ago.
Oh, that's
I
so
am
funny.
not even
Okay.
kidding you. It was like scary. There were times when she was talking, I was like, holy crap, this is Lauren on the stage. This is just like a very younger version of her. But if you look at Lauren now, sorry, no, I'm putting on, it's so
She's got her
embarrassing.
head tilted just slightly
Yeah,
over.
and then you look at the image there, like the eyes are similar, the mouth is similar.
I
This
did have
isn't
bangs
some
as a little
offspring.
kid too, so
Well, you got bangs now too. Maybe that's really what it is. It's the bangs that's throwing me off. So
that's
think-
so funny. I'll have to
Lauren, I
ask
think this
my
is all a
parents.
compliment. I think. I'm pretty sure this is a compliment for both of
Well,
y'all.
I mean, she's a very well. I mean, it's like y'all were saying. She's so well spoken. I was really impressed with her, and like what Deborah Chow was saying about how they were looking for someone who embodied the same spirit that Carrie Fisher had, not somebody that would just be mimicking it.
Right.
And I feel like that really shone through this interview too. So if she looks like a younger me, then that's cool with me.
you'll take it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I enjoyed the other two. The other thing, she had that little story about how she was 3 months in the filming, and then all her friends were talking about how they love Star Wars, and she was
Right.
like under an NDA, couldn't say a single word. I was just chuckling because I can't imagine what life was like at 10 years old. But then she was like, oh, but then they, after everything was over, it was fine, and they didn't treat me any different. And thinking, wow, that would not have been me at all. Like I would have spilled the beans and ruined the NDA because I would have been so
I would have been
over the moon.
secretly signing everyone's yearbook. Leia.
Leia. Yeah, right. Just because, for no reason. What about, so we talked a little bit already about Hayden Christensen, but I know he had a couple of really tender moments, I'm going to call them, with being out on stage there. But I mean, it doesn't seem like it stops, right? Every celebration, it's the same. It feels like his popularity continues to grow over time, and this is all a good thing because I think a lot of people, both him and Jake Lloyd took a pretty bad, rap in the prequel trilogy. So it's good to see that they're finally coming around. I really wish we'd get Jake Lloyd, by the way. I know it's tough because he's got some other things going on right now in his life that are probably beyond, right. So, God bless him. But anyways, Hayden Christensen, I guess especially during this interview, what were your thoughts here?
Man, he's just got to be living his best life right now. And when he shows up, he just has, well, first of all, the absolute coolest intro for the Celebration live stage of the entire weekend so far. I mean, they brought the lights down. They had lightning and blue lights and then red lights, and his name was in red,
Right. Everybody else had green.
I was at a basketball game or something. I was pumped up.
Yeah.
It was awesome. You had the Vader breathing and stuff. They really went all out for him. And again, it's really cool that he has had this really complete turnaround with the fandom, right? With Star Wars in general, but also with the fandom, and that we've collectively kind of come around, to be able to really truly embrace him. And many of us always have, of course, but that it feels more universal now, and you just feel that emotional connection that he has allowed himself to go and create with the fandom, to where he literally broke down more than once and was wiping tears from his eyes, and you just hear what it means to him. It's just really special to hear him just share that with everyone, and to really make sure everyone feels like, no, he really does mean this. This means the world to him. And putting on the Vader costume, putting on the he shared that one of his favorite moments was doing the flashback scene with Obi-Wan, of course, with Ewan McGregor. Kind of that old, just getting the band back together type of thing, and being able to reconnect. And we all loved it too. And again, when you have two people who love working together, it comes across on screen, and the people who watch it, you get something extra from it. It's crazy how that works, but with chemistry just means something. And it's wonderful that he's developed a chemistry with the fandom as well.
Yeah. I know, Lauren, you're a big fan of Hayden Christensen. So what was it like seeing him on stage here?
It's just, it speaks to how special the franchise is, because I feel like, back when the prequels came out and the negative voices at the time were the loudest, but now there's pretty much no negativity, because all of those kids that were massive fans of him have now grown up, and now they're the loudest voices. And so it's special to me to see him and other actors from the prequels get the recognition and the love that they deserve for how well they played those parts.
Yeah. Part of that too is natural selection. So a lot of those older voices they're dead, so they can't speak anymore. So This is a good thing. Yeah.
Wow.
This got appropriately dark.
It's just the reality of it all, right? Well, over time, they will not be speaking. I can assure you of that. So
it was a day of dark side. So I guess we've just gone there.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Why don't we let's talk about Giancarlo now. I didn't get a chance to watch this interview, and I know you mentioned he spoiled something. So I don't know if it's considered spoilerish at this point.
Definitely spoilers.
Okay. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about?
Well,
do I need to cover my ears?
No, so if you want a spoiler from the most recent Mandalorian episode, which people at Celebration saw, but we have not, and I think Giancarlo Esposito probably forgot a little bit about that, then you'll want to go watch this interview. It's a small spoiler. It's what Moff Gideon says to someone. So is it super spoilery? Not really, but many people who are sensitive might not want to. But it was just surprising that a spoiler came out, but he's also very energetic, right? He gets very passionate about this. He's very passionate about the human experience. Which I think when I think about Ian McDiarmid, I see someone that's really naturally charming, right? And just this English gentleman of sorts. And then when I look at Giancarlo Esposito, he's a gentleman in a very different way, because he's just all about we should be able to want to make everyone better, and we should be more assertive about it and do what we can to lift one another up. Everything is possible. The perennial cheerleader for life, right? And for anybody, and just a smile that would just knock the entire room over. And so he's just so intoxicating to listen to, because it just energizes you to be better at life, and do some of that, which I just find so compelling with him, and just how much he's really into the character of Moff Gideon. But he throws himself into everything, I think.
It made me laugh too when, to your point, he was talking about how people were like, how do you play these awful people when you're so nice? And he said, deep down, I'm just a you-know-what.
I'm just an a-hole, yeah.
Yeah.
Did he really say that?
Yeah.
In the replay, they beat that part out.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
but still, wow, that's crazy. Because he's, as some of you may know, but listening to the show, the Breaking Bad is like one of my favorite all-time television series.
That is a long list, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's not that long, but I could probably give you a top 10. But either way, like, he's a highlight of that, and he is awful. Like,
Yeah.
he is absolutely freaking awful. But he played, and it's, to be honest, he's playing kind of the same character here in Gideon, just with less meth. But yeah, I mean, it's just amazing that he's able to kind of channel that. So kudos to him for doing that. It's like Ian McDermott we talked about, right? He's just the sweetest dude, and then he gets into the character, and you're like, wow, that guy's.
Well, actually, I thought one of the better story, or one of not the better stories, but really compelling story with Ian McDermott was during the panel for the villains, and he was talking about they were talking about their worst character they played or the worst moments or whatever, and his story was from a play that he did about a racist politician in the South here in the U.S. But he was going through that backstory, and because these actors, they come into these characters are they just no one is natively evil, right? They're not natively bad. They get that way for a reason, right? But going through that journey of an actor, and while sometimes you have reservations about the character you're going to play because of what the optics were or what the message they sent actually was, but at the same time, it's more about that journey of understanding and learning, which is how actors kind of pull all of that together. They dive into the part, and they try to figure out all the reasons why a character is like they are. And that's what makes those special. It's not necessarily about just that they're just cold dead evil and bad. It's more that they got that way, and that's the part you want to bring forward into the character somehow, because that's the story. The story isn't what they're doing in the moment necessarily. It's the why and the how they got there. Why? What are their motivations? What are the things that what can be used against them in those types of ways too, right? And that's what makes good storytelling. And so Giancarlo Esposito is very much in that same way. He's played a lot of bad characters, but how he approaches the character is what's really most interesting.
I can't get behind Palpatine not being born evil.
Well, and that's the funny one. Ian McDermott always said that he was just the most purely evil from day one.
Yeah.
But even in this interview or this panel, he backed off. He's like, well, I know what I said. You guys can throw it at me, but even he probably had experiences that got him that way. I want to hear all those experiences. I'm not going to lie.
Well, hey, you never know. You might get your wish at some point down the road.
Probably will.
Let's see. Who else did we have? I mean, there are a couple other folks in here. We had Jonas come out on stage. I think we talked about him earlier today.
You talked a little bit about, actually, one of the funny things about Jonas was the story about the costuming for the Jedi, that he's going to play an acolyte.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that he was most shocked by was that, why does this one have clothes?
Yeah.
And none of the other ones do.
Right. So Chewbacca's been naked this entire time. We'd never said a thing.
He said, he's mildly disturbed by this.
Yep.
Like, why are these choices? Like, bandolier. I mean, of course, Anthony Carboni just stepped right into all of that because it's Anthony.
To be fair, he's only wearing basically a tabard, though, which, goes over anything anyway. So,
and maybe flip flops or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like he's, got underwear on and suddenly it's like, whoa. So what were we not supposed to see?
Right. But Lauren, like, rooting for the good guys. I mean, we have so many, just good people in Star Wars, but Jonas is just the easiest, like one of the easiest to get around. He's just like this big, lovable dude that loves what he's doing and just loves giving everything into it.
Yeah, I love how excited everybody's been getting about the Wookiee Jedi too. Like that just warms my heart that everybody's kind of grabbing onto this idea. Because I think didn't they say yesterday too that the inspiration came from Buryaga?
Oh, now they're just playing with your hearts.
No, they did. It was so Leslie Headland said that when she got into and started reading the High Republic, she saw that there was a Wookiee Jedi. And she immediately jumped on. I was like, I forget it. Hold the presses. We've got to get one into the story somehow. And so she spearheaded that and created this character that he's playing, which is Cal Naka.
Cal
Naka. Thank you. Sorry, getting the two Wookiees mixed up there. But Cal Naka, yeah. So yes, definitely an inspiration for him. So I don't know how many Wookiee Jedi we're going to have too. Like, they lived for a long time. Well, I mean, I guess they would have to pass. I'm just trying to think out loud. Like, is this going to be a thing now? So, yeah, wouldn't be against it though.
Right. But again, just Jonas, love seeing that he's getting more work in Star Wars beyond just Chewbacca. I mean, they're still Wookiees, I guess. So he'll branch out at some point. When you're a big dude like that, though, a little pigeonhole, but I'm glad that he's just loving it. He gets to be more physical. He's a very physical actor. He does the stunts in the Wookiee costume, which have been with Chewbacca were essential in Solo, right? And in some of the other content as well. So I think it's great that he's having an opportunity to show that athleticism that he naturally has as well. Because there's taller people in general tend to have a lot of joint pain and things like that as they get older. So it's great how much shape he's in, and then the athletic ability to be able to come back and be showcased as well.
Yeah, we heard that a lot with Mayhew. He was, as he got older, it was more difficult to do and move around
really
and
tough.
stuff because they're just so
knees.
big.
Yeah, hips and knees are just really tough. It seems.
There was also the Cameron Moynihan Poncho Gate that was happening. So
I don't know that I understood what all the Poncho Gate stuff was. I guess it was with DLC.
Yeah, so well, and it's just ponchos in general. I mean, I posted this like 4 years ago on certain. I went and took a picture of every poncho in Star Wars that I could find because I was starting to see a pattern of like, man, ponchos are a really big thing in Star Wars, and I don't know, maybe we need to have a Patreon show or something, but yeah, it was really about that. So he came out with the poncho on, right? So that was he's just stirring the pot at that point with Poncho Gate. But all that aside, I mean, the interview was good. It's so cool to see that guy be accepted and acknowledged and cheered for and clapped for because he's in a video game, right? And it speaks to the storytelling, right? The deep storytelling that they got with Fallen Order and with Survivor. It speaks to his acting ability and how much he's able to convey all that through just voice acting. And then it speaks to the graphics too, right? All of these things have come together and he feels like a part of Star Wars. And I can't, with the exception of like Sam Witwer, right? And what he did during the Force Unleashed games. Well, okay, no, that's not true. We've gotten some other ones. So I was thinking about Shriv, right? The Lando one they did. The technology, I guess, is where I'm going, has really lent itself for traditionally voice actors who are doing parts for video games, not really getting the recognition, but he feels like a character like anybody else on the big screen. So he's a celebrity now. That's awesome.
Have you had a chance to watch these trailers, Lauren? Because they did show finally the final trailer for Jedi Survivor, which comes out in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, the trailer, the graphics looks amazing in this game. I mean, I know that they've always been amazing, but wow, I mean, the graphics blew me away on this. And it was interesting hearing them talk about it too, because they said some stuff about the game that I don't think I had heard yet. So it'll be interesting to see how the game starts off and like what way the story ends up going. Because after reading the book, I had some questions left over after that. So it sounds like the game is going to be answering some of those.
Clearing some of that stuff up.
And we don't really cover a lot of video games in general, although we might have to start doing at least the story aspect of them because with the books as well, but also we're getting cinematic storytelling in video games, right? Mm-hmm. And this is really the first time we're getting them in a more FPS, like first person shooter type of game for Star Wars. In a more, like I said, more of a cinematic type of way. We've had it in other areas, but they're in very long form with like the old, with the Old Republic RPGs and things like that. They're quite expansive and extended and always going and developing. But I think the more compelling part about this is like this idea of light and dark within Cal and how he's dealing with some of this. And what's funny in the trailer, you get to see some pretty brutal like action. Like he cuts a stormtrooper's leg off, like you see the stump, and it's like, glowing and stuff.
It's almost a little shocking for a Jedi, right?
It was, yeah. I mean, and again, it's a video game. I get that part. There's a certain element of violence and things that they want to put into games these days to keep people interested, but also, I mean, not this is more from a story aspect of like, wow, that's pushing it a little bit with Cal. So what's going on and what is this journey going to look like for him? I think that's what makes that interesting, of course, is this challenge between light and dark that we always see with Force users in particular.
Yeah. We may need to get a show into once the games come out. Maybe we just combine both of them. Talk about
once Lauren's had a chance to play the whole thing. And,
where did you land on that, Lauren? I know we threw that out there.
Where did you land with Albert's peer pressure?
Yeah, I tried to will into existence. I've sent you threat messages, and you've never returned any of them. I've sent you money. That didn't work either. You just kept it.
I think I didn't receive the money. You might need to resend.
Okay, yeah, sure. I didn't get that. Lost in the mail. No, but where did you land with this? Are you going to just kind of wait for the story to come out and kind of work off of that? Or do you think you're going to give it a good old run and try to do the game there?
So I was going to do it from a story perspective, because for me to review, if I was to actually play the game, it would take probably 20 years before my review actually came out.
Okay,
Considering
fair.
how long it takes me to beat bosses and things like that, it would be very, very slow. So yeah, I was gonna review it from like a story perspective once the story's out there and I can watch some walkthroughs and things like that.
So the Twitch account that I created for you to stream this is, I can go ahead and just close that up. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that would be hilarious for people to watch that.
Instead of Lauren
but
covers
no,
Star
I'm-
Wars, it's
Lauren plays Star Wars. There you go. Get that in. Can we get that?
Lauren plays Star
Copyrighted?
Wars very badly. Yeah,
Right. That's in the subcontext of the show.
yeah.
Very badly. Oh no, that's and so what are we, like 4 weeks away, 3 weeks away?
a little less than 3 weeks away. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's coming up pretty quickly or pretty soon. So looking forward to that. Gonna mark off a week of time at work.
Well, just not that day one, man. Patches and crashes and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. What else do we got? Did we miss anything? Anything else that you guys want to bring up that happened today, day 3?
I mean, those were the main highlights. I mean, again, it was more of a more interpersonal day, I think, of some ways, of just getting to know individual people a little bit better. So really encourage everyone to go out there and review some of this content. We're doing it really at the kind of a surface level and favorite stories type of thing, but well worth your time to kind of scan through it. And once again, Dale's out there giving you timestamps on the video, so go out there and give Dale a thumbs up if you see that. But yeah, I mean, it's always those small story elements. You sometimes have to wait for them, but when they come, they're very rewarding.
Yeah. Lauren, anything else that you had in your notes or any highlights, anything you wanted to discuss?
We hit all my main points.
Okay. Well, we will probably end this now then. We've got, just as a reminder, we've got one more show remaining. That'll be tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central. This will be our day 4 coverage. Let's see, what do we got lined up for day 4?
So day 4 is we have the Marvel Comics panel is the big one for us, really, because that's where we expect to get not only more confirmation of the High Republic, maybe a little bit of story, and that's not really seeming like all that likely. But will we get other content as well? In years past, we've had the Blade with Porter Ingle. We think more is to probably come there. We've also had announcements of like Xanastaros and what do we get? Yoda and things like that. So I believe we will potentially get hopefully some more of that type of content, right, Lauren?
Yeah, I would like to have some more of that. Here's hoping.
Yeah, I really do. I like these one-shot comics or these small mini-series comics. There is going to be another event coming as well, so they will announce a new event that's coming. That is confirmed. So there will be some new avenues of storytelling that we will get, and these will be outside of the High Republic, I believe. So it's not part of the High Republic in that regard, which have all been more in the original trilogy type of days. But curious if they will start expanding beyond some of that. I would love to see them bring back like the old Republic comics and things like that, even if it was especially if it was through like a Dark Horse. But
I mean, they put Old Republic on the timeline, so
yeah, we kind of buried that story. I haven't stopped thinking about it. No.
It's always been there,
because they
though,
didn't say
kinda.
anything about it. Yeah,
Right.
they didn't.
So they've
say-
said,
yeah.
so it's never, well,
it was more of a reference point, I think, for this time.
yeah.
But I'm
I've
with
got
you.
thoughts, but I won't share them right now because we're trying to get out of here.
Right. So anyway, yes, we have Marvel tomorrow. That's kind of the big one. Of course, there's a lot of wrap up. There's more interviews. So we will continue just to gather what we find, and we'll do just everything in one show tomorrow evening, and bring that to you and wrap up our coverage, our final 6th live stream. So a pretty good run here. I'm pretty happy with how this has gone, aside from some technical challenges and just trying to figure out how to do this live.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, technical challenges is more like the guy behind the keyboard, which is me.
Or the keyboard itself at times.
Those were fun moments.
Okay, so if you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you need to check us out, go to YouTube, go to cantinacast.com/YouTube. You can see all the videos there. You can see all of Lauren's stuff too from Jedi Novel Archive. Let's go ahead and quickly plug that. You've got, where are you at? You were working on some of the comic stuff, yeah? Or the young reader stuff is your next foray into that.
Yes, that's my next on my list is going to be Quest for Planet X, which is the new Tessa Gratton release, and then Path of Vengeance is coming up soon too. And I also have some High Republic comics to catch up on once we get. With the comics, I gotta wait for enough issues to be out for me to have something to say. So those are coming up soon too.
Well, that never stopped us before, and you're doing the right thing. So, right.
Yeah, and then of course we've got Q&A coming up, so please do send us your questions. cantinacast.com/question will get you over the form, get that over to us, or get in the log. And if you would like to guarantee that your question will be read on air and answered, We do would love to invite you over to the cantinacast.com/Patreon page. That way you can see the tiers that we have. We do have a couple of new members already from this weekend, so thank you for joining. We will read your names out when we get back to the official shows with our Mandalorian content on Thursday, as we come out of Celebration and have a little bit of a Celebration hangover probably from all the excitement, but we'll get back into our normal stride, getting back into normal Patreon content as well with some exclusives for you guys. So be on the lookout for all of that. But get your questions in for Q&A.
Yep. The best way to get over a hangover, from what I understand, is just to keep drinking. So we just need to do a show like every day this week and just keep the high going.
We'll just keep the Star Wars train rolling.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Okay. All right.
Who needs a personal or social life? This is your social life.
Yeah, this is all I do.
It's not all he does.
Okay. Well, let's see. So yeah, what do we got here? 24 hours from now, we'll be doing this all over again. So please join us again, cantinacast.com/YouTube. Subscribe. And from all three of us, we'll see you guys tomorrow.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.